If your goal is to have the majority of your clientele match your ideal client profile, you need to have a true fit process and a fit meeting. This is the entire focus of the first appointment. Is the prospective client a good fit for you, and are you a good fit for the prospective client? A natural and welcome byproduct of this selective approach is the creation of scarcity. This is a key aspect of exclusivity and branding, and it's an important ingredient in a referral-based business. In the past, many advisors have related to us that sometimes a new client can give off the impression that they are doing you some kind of favor because they decided to work with you. It's happened to almost everyone. This is often the logical outcome of selling someone on the idea of working with you, however skillfully that selling was done. The client was still sold. It doesn't have to be this way. With a process that's devoted to fit, you can always look forward to a new client feeling that it was an accomplishment that you decided to take them on as a client. To accomplish this, a dedicated and consistent process is required, with no closing, no persuasion, and no hot buttons pushed. This can be tricky for those that have been trained from square one to always quote unquote get the deal, but those that push through those feelings and leave the archaic sales tactics in the dust will become extremely attractive to the marketplace. They will become highly referable and exponentially more professional as a result. It bears repeating here, if you say you have a process, you must always stick to it. If you do not, and you make exceptions, not only will your credibility and integrity come into question, you will unlikely reach critical mass. And I speak of the critical mass whereby your process has become the compelling cornerstone of an almost exclusively referral-based business. Whereas most advisors seek to close the deal, this first meeting or fit meeting establishes a process to determine a mutual fit and thereby a partnership or not. This is something that is seldom seen in the financial services industry, and for clients that are tired of being sold, it's extremely attractive. Getting at the nuts and bolts of the first appointment now, and of course, this will be subsequent to all of the steps in the pre-appointment process discussed in the last strategy. It's come to the day of the meeting with your prospective client, or as we call it, the first appointment or fit appointment. As per the suggested guidelines in this strategy, the fit meeting should be at least 2 weeks out from the day the potential client initially contacted your office. The process graphic shown here illustrates the main stages of the first appointment and will be helpful to you as a guide as you learn the ropes of a successful first appointment. The first appointment is a 45-minute to 1 hour agenda-driven meeting, and the meeting begins by ensuring that you spend about 3 to 5 minutes building some rapport with your prospective client, exploring their family, occupational, and recreational activities, and then recording what you've learned and documenting it into your CRM as we discussed in the strategy, client profiling. From there, it's a matter of proceeding through the agenda. The first appointment is an agenda-driven meeting, as will be all the subsequent face-to-face meetings with the client as a part of this process, and for the review meetings going forward. The agenda is a marvelous tool to keep you on track for what needs to be covered in this meeting, and you'll find that clients truly appreciate the professionalism that is implied by the simple fact that you use an agenda in the first place. The agenda is found within this strategy, along with the scripting for the first appointment, so that you can begin customization and implementation at your first opportunity. There will also be some ancillary documents that need to be printed off to complement the appropriate points on this agenda. We'll cover those as they appear in the order that they appear in the agenda. The agenda itself is separated into 2 major areas. The advisor portion of the agenda, whereby the advisor fully discloses all of the pertinent items that the client needs to know about the advisor, their practice, their company, and their approach. All this information is information that the prospective client needs or will want to know, so you deal with it first so that you can end strong on the client. As a bonus, if you model forthrightness in this way, the client typically does the same. The client portion of the agenda is where the spotlight shines on the prospective client, and will occupy the lion's share of the time available during this meeting. Looking at the advisor portion of the agenda now, and highlighted in red, this is where the meeting formally begins, and you hand over a copy of the agenda to the prospective client. Of course, this is after you've built some rapport with the prospective client. These items that are highlighted may look like a lot to get through, but it's really a brief overview, and it will reinforce what they've probably heard from the referral source. It also reinforces what they've seen in the introductory kit that you sent out. This consistency enhances trust with the prospective client. It's important that you get through the advisor portion of the agenda, highlighted here, in roughly 12 to 15 minutes time. This may seem hard to get your head around at this point, but it's rather straightforward to complete those items within that time frame. In your rehearsing, if you tend to be going over that time limit, then you need to shorten some or all of your scripting on those points so that you can begin to focus on the prospective client. As it relates to the elements that pertain to you specifically and your specific company, you'll need to customize some of the speaking notes from the script. However, for the most part, the scripting is complete and ready to be rehearsed and practiced after that initial customization. Breaking down the advisor portion of the agenda now, you'll see appropriate speaking notes, guidance, and instructions in the scripting that we provide. The scripting is designed to mirror the agenda so that you can customize, rehearse, and role-play in relatively short order. In fact, in the early throes of making the scripting your own, many advisors have found it advantageous to print off a second agenda, for their eyes only, with bullet points under each heading. This helps keep the advisor on track as they internalize the flow of the meeting and as they familiarize themselves with the scripting. The slide shown here outlines the meeting overview and reaffirms the reason why you are meeting together, and that is to determine fit and to reaffirm to the prospective client that no decisions will be made today. Each of these things the client has already been promised, so you are really validating their trust with the meeting overview. In other words, doing all the things that you said you would do when you spoke on the phone and that they read about in your introductory kit. The next item on the agenda is entitled About Our Practice and Approach. This heading on the agenda is where you impart the following information: an introduction to our team, our wealth management process, your critical financial events, our fee for service, and a brief teaser on our introduction process. An introduction to our team is simply you letting the prospective client know more about you, your team, and the company that you've decided to work with. The next item is our wealth management process and articulates, as simply as possible, your approach to wealth management. This includes language about how you engage in complete wealth management with your clients, and it also introduces the prospective client to the importance of critical financial events. What are critical financial events? Well, the answer is simple: by design. Critical financial events are significant events that have to do with money. Some are expected and some are unexpected, but they all have the potential to impact the financial plan. That's where you come in. One of the greatest missteps that we see advisors fall victim to is a tendency to over-educate clients about the intricacies of investing, asset allocation, and all of the other technical elements that surround the topic. Most clients simply tune out and nod politely when this over-education takes place, and they may nod politely, but the reality is that they don't really understand it, and as a result, they're unable to convey the importance of what you do to others that they know. Critical financial events, then, is the great leveler, and it does a spectacular job of helping clients truly understand the vast importance of what you do. It positions investments as just one spoke on a very large wheel that you are responsible for, and it helps clients understand that you are the person, or quarterback really, that helps them navigate through all of the critical financial events of their life, adjusting and readjusting the plan when necessary in order to help them get to their overall goals and objectives in a reasonable amount of time. As the scripting articulates, far too many advisors and clients think of financial planning as a one-time event, An elaborate plan is prepared and is often obsolete by the time it's delivered to the client, or shortly thereafter, due to the appearance of an unexpected critical financial event. Critical financial events are anything and everything that pertains to and that affects your finances, either now or in future. It could be retiring, legacy planning, education planning, charitable giving, or even an unexpected illness. This is the beauty of critical financial events. They're anything to do with money. Clients will start to use the phraseology themselves and can share it with others and will wholeheartedly buy into your process. You can use the graphics we provide to augment your description of your approach to wealth management and critical financial events. You could even have them laminated, as many of our clients have done, or perhaps you can even have your own version made for demonstrative purposes as you walk prospective clients through your process. It's right around this time, during your discussion about your approach to wealth management and critical financial events, that you show the prospective client a sample of a personal financial organizer. This organizer shows the prospective client that when you engage with a new client, you employ a powerful tool to monitor the financial planning process together. We will discuss the ins and outs of the Personal Financial Organizer, or PFO, in an upcoming strategy, but just know for now, it's at this point in the description of your approach to wealth management that this demonstration of the PFO beautifully rounds out for the prospective client how you work collaboratively with your top clients. The last two items under the heading Our Practice and Approach is our fee for service and also a preview of our introduction process. In the scripting, we provide a variety of compensation models that represent how the bulk of advisors charge. You simply need to pick the model from the scripting that most resembles your situation, customize it further if need be, and then incorporate it into the final draft of your script. It's very important that you only give the high-level view of how you're compensated here and to avoid specifics as to what precisely that potential client may or may not be charged, even if you're pressured to do so. Remember, this person is not even a client, nor has a strategy been put into place. A cynic is a person that knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. You are here at this meeting to determine fit or not, and that is the focus. To start speculating on specifically what that person will be charged is wildly premature, and it caters to the lowest common denominator. If a client is pressuring you for specifics, pay very close attention to that, because we all know what that kind of client is like to work with down the road, and you need to regain control of the meeting. The item on the agenda that refers to our introduction process is really just planting the seed with the prospective client that you have a process in the event that your clients ever encounter someone that could benefit from your services, and that's why it's on the agenda. In the event that you do decide that you and this prospective client are a fit, the introduction process will be outlined in detail in the second appointment, which is precisely where we will discuss that process as well in detail. At this point in the agenda, we've spent the initial 3 to 5 minutes building rapport with our potential client. We've completed the advisor portion of the agenda, and roughly 15 minutes have passed in the meeting. It's time now to spend the balance of the meeting, typically 30 to 45 minutes, assessing fit for you and also, of course, finding out what's important to the prospective client. This is a chance for the prospective client to articulate what they are looking for, in other words, their goals and objectives, and what they're looking for from the potential relationship. It's also a chance for you, within that dialogue, to ask any questions that you need to ascertain whether or not you have a good fit in front of you. This is what the item Understanding Your Expectations is for on the agenda, and it's your opportunity to start assessing the potential client to see if the person will end up meeting your ideal client profile. We have provided a document entitled Understanding Your Expectations that has some excellent questions that you may consider asking the prospective client. This is your opportunity to get a rough idea of investable assets, etc., and it's also an opportunity to gauge attitude and the potential client's previous history with other advisors. The next item on the agenda is entitled Your Financial and Lifestyle Goals and What's Important to You. In fact, there's a resource in this strategy to be used with a prospective client that is called What's Important to You. The prospective client is given this sheet and asked to check off the 3 things that are most important to them, and you quietly give them as long as they need to do this without interruption. And then you have the balance of the meeting to drill down and do what you do so well as a financial advisor. Typical questions: what does that mean to you? Why is that important to you? Tell me more about that if you would, please. As you can imagine, their answers will reveal a great deal about their goals and objectives, and in addition, whether or not these goals and objectives align with your services and your planning process. Ultimately, whether or not they are a match for the ideal client profile that you've already drawn up. It may seem unthinkable, but we've heard feedback from advisors innumerable times over the years that clients have said to them, "Nobody has ever asked me what was important to me before." It's a powerful exercise to go through, not only for the prospective client, but for you as well. To help initiate a productive and robust dialogue around the prospective client's financial and lifestyle goals, we provided a useful document entitled What's Important to You. You'll print off this document before the meeting, and at this point in the meeting, you hand over the What's Important to You resource to the client. If it's 2 spouses that you're meeting with, you give them each a copy to fill out. The potential client is prompted to check off the 3 things that are most important to them. Of course, you give them as long as you need to without interruption, and then you have the balance of the meeting to drill down and do what you do so well as a financial advisor. Questions like, what does that mean to you? And why is that important to you? And tell me more about that if you would. As you can imagine, the prospective client's answers will reveal a great deal about their goals and objectives, and in addition, whether or not these goals and objectives align with your services and your planning process, and ultimately, whether or not they're a match for the ideal client profile that you've already drawn up. It may seem unthinkable, but we've heard back from advisors innumerable times over the years that prospective clients have said, "Nobody has ever asked me what's important to me before." It's a powerful exercise to go through, not only for the prospective client, but for you as well. The last item on the agenda for the first appointment is the meeting wrap-up. As you're wrapping up, the scripting we provided for this restates the objective of the meeting, which of course is to determine whether or not there's a fit between you and the prospective client, and then articulates that the next 48 hours are a time for both you and your prospective client to reflect on your meeting and eventually come to a conclusion 48 hours later as to whether or not a fit has been reached. This call is strongly recommended to take place 48 hours later, and on that note, you need to follow the scripting precisely to ensure that there are very clear expectations to fulfill over the next 48 hours and what is expected on the fit call 48 hours later. What are those expectations? You will be calling and giving your decision at that time, and of course you expect a decision from the prospective client at that time as to whether or not there's a mutual fit. That said, to lend some weight to the call, the fit call should be booked with a precise time, for instance, Thursday at 10 o'clock, and it should be no more than a 10-minute phone call. When it's time to do your fit call, 48 hours later, you'll find appropriate scripting within the strategy. You should follow it to the letter. In terms of who goes first with announcing their decision, and as per the scripting, it's your responsibility to go first. After all, it's your process. You need to go first. You will then, as per the scripting, give your client your decision. If you've decided over the last 48 hours that the potential client is a good fit for you and that they are a good match for your ideal client profile, you'll be saying as much to the prospective client. When you ask the prospective client for their decision, if they say, "Great, it's a good match over here as well," then you can begin the pre-appointment phase for the second meeting. We'll be discussing all of the steps for that in the next strategy. If the prospective client says that they've not made a decision or that they need more time, we say that's fine, we respect that. It was a pleasure to have met them, and we can assume that there's not a fit. This, of course, does not include extenuating circumstances, such as an emergency, that obviously would delay a decision with your prospective client. If the prospective client states that they've decided to go elsewhere, we don't chase them. We simply say that we respect that decision and that it was a pleasure to have met them, and we can assume again that it was not a fit. All of these outcomes are proof positive that your process has worked. You've either agreed to work with a new client that's an ideal client, or you've avoided taking on someone that's unable to make a decision after an extremely thorough and professional discovery process, or they have decided to go elsewhere, which means, of course, that it was not a fit for them. As a final caution, you may have prospective clients that are so enamored with you and your process that they want to sign up right at the fit meeting itself and without the benefit of a fit call 48 hours later. You must resist all temptation if that happens, or you will be breaking your process and potentially compromising your integrity. You did say at the outset of the meeting that it was important that no decisions were going to be made, and you of course alluded to the fact that you would need the time as well to make an educated decision. Now, if you go down the road of taking them on at the meeting, you will be backtracking on all of that if you take that person on as a client. In the same point, maybe somebody referred that person to you because it was the first time they had the luxury of making a decision away from a financial advisor, having 48 hours to seriously think about a major decision and without being pressured. Potentially, that person was introduced to you for that very specific reason, and now you would be breaking from your process, which got you referred in the first place, and you'd be taking that referral on right at the first meeting. What would happen if those two people got back together again and shared their experiences? It can be a very slippery slope. One person had to wait 48 hours, and the next one didn't. That's the kind of inconsistency that creates doubts all over the map, and it can effectively put the brakes on that person ever referring again.